So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let us commence. A'udhu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Vessalatu vesselamu ala eşrefi halk seyyidul enam Muhammedur Resulullah sallallahu teala aleyhi ve sellem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yesir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yafkahu kavli ve ufevvidu emri ilallah. İnnallâhe basirun bin ibad. In the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate, indeed God is with those who fear Him and those who do good. That's a verse in the Quran. If you want to see what a truly human duty and what a natural, appropriate result of man's creation, it is to perform the prescribed prayers, the daily 5 prayers, and not to commit sins. Listen to and take heed of the following comparison, allegory again. So, the daily 5 prayers is the natural, appropriate duty of man's creation, because the Quran clearly states that we were created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a natural result of our creation to be obedient servants, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, we mentioned that before a number of times. Even if you look at the Adam alayhi salam's name, it represents the prayer, doesn't it? You know, the 3 letters there. Alif is qiyam, you can see it, and dal is ruku, and mim is sajda, the 3 letters of his name, Adam. So it's representing, and human beings are the only beings on earth who can actually have the physical body, the flexibility to do the 5 daily prayers, the motions. The rest of the creation are not designed to do it, but they were given certain positions, all of them as well. All the trees are always in qiyam, as you know, and all the 4-legged animals are always in ruku. And animals like fish and the ones who slide on their bellies, they're in the position of sajda constantly. And there are reports, hadith reports, that, angels in the universe, there are trillions and trillions of them, countless angels Allah have created. It is said that there are worshipping angels which constantly worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said that some of them always in qiyam, some of them always are in ruku, and others at the sajda position. On top of that, it is not just the angels and jinns and human beings, but the entire universe, whether it's living or not living, in a way, are in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But since we are beings, agents that have free will, so we are responsible beings, and one of our major responsibility after faith, iman, is the daily 5 prayers. They are the most significant of all worship, daily 5 prayers. So if you want to know how important they are, let me explain it with a allegory or analogy. Once at a time of general mobilizations, two soldiers found themselves together in a regiment. So it was a time of where armies were being sent, to the fronts. 2 soldiers found themselves together in a regiment of the army. One was well trained and conspicuous. The other, a raw recruit and self-centered person. The person who is aware of what's going on, well-trained person, concentrated on training and the duties of war, and did not give a thought, did not even think about, where his rations and provisions would come from. For he knew that it was the state's duty to feed and equip him and treat him if he was ill. and even to put the food in his mouth if the need arose. It was the duty of the government. He knew that his essential duty, the main duty, was to train and, if necessary, fight, because he is a soldier. But he would also attend some of the rations and equipment as part of his work, to look after the rations, to prepare, and to look after the equipment. He would boil up the saucepans, wash up the mess after people ate, and bring them. If it was then asked him, "Why are you doing this? What are you doing?" he would reply, "I am doing fatigue duty for the state. This is my duty." The burdensome duties. He would not say, "I am working for my own living," to attain my own living. No, because he's in the army. It is the army's, it's the government's duty to look after their soldiers. The other person, the other soldier, the raw recruit, however, was fond of his own stomach and paid no attention to training or to the duties of war. "That is the state's business," he would say. "What is it to me? I don't care," he would say. He thought constantly of his own livelihood, and pursuing it would leave, during his pursuit of it, he would leave the regiment and go to the market and other places to do shopping. One day his well-trained good soldier friend said to him, "Your basic duty is training here, and if necessary, going to war." "Brother," he said to him, "so your main basic duty is to train, because you're a soldier, and if necessary, go to the front and fight. Brother, you were brought here for that reason. You need to trust the king. He will not let you go hungry. You're thinking about your food, but he's not going to let you go hungry because you're his man. That is his duty. Anyway, you are powerless and wanting. You cannot feed yourself everywhere. And this is a time of mobilization and war. It's a turbulent times. He will tell you that you are mutinous. So you're committing mutiny, abandoning the army, isn't it? And he will punish you. Yes, there are two duties which concern us. One is the king's duty. Sometimes we do this, and we do his fatigue duties, duties of burdensome duties, and he feeds us for it. The other is our duty. There is training, if necessary, fighting, and sometimes the king supports us with this. So the soldier, good soldier, is explaining this to the other soldier. Of course, you will understand in what danger the layabout soldier would be if he did not pay attention to striving well-trained one, if he didn't listen to the advice of the other soldier. Now he goes, I think, to reality here. "Oh, my lazy soul, my insolent, legrathic, isn't it the term? Legathic, soul, lazy." And that's how human beings are in general. We are lazy. That turbulent place in the example, the place of war, is in reality this stormy, worldly life. So that was an analogy, but it's this life. This life is turbulent, stormy. And the army, which was divided into regiments, is human societies, different nations. The regiment, in comparison, is the community of Islam in this century. Muslims, with the good soldier he was described. One of the two soldiers is a devout Muslim, obedient Muslim, who knows his obligations of his religion and performs them and struggles with the shaitan and his own soul in order to give up serious misdoings, misbehavior, and to avoid committing sins. That was the good soldier. Everyone will have those, tickles. Everyone. Nobody is perfect. We're not prophets. Only prophets had the sifat, the attribute of isma. The prophets never committed sins intentionally. According to some views, they may have committed minor sins, but the majority's view is they make mistakes, sometimes prophets, or zella, slip-ups, but they never intentionally disobey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They always do the right thing. That's how prophets were. And they were protected as well. That's why they have that sifat. But the rest of the human beings, no matter who you are, you might be a very high-level scholar. You might even be awliyaullah, wali, a saint. You'll still commit sins because you're human. So you got that side to us. You can, lean towards it. If you're in the wrong crowd, it will happen too. That is why it's always advised that, always hang around, especially for younger people, always hang around with the good crowd, with the right friends. Otherwise, the wrong friends will take you to wrong places. There's no doubt about it. And you will be affected. There's no doubt. You can't stop it. You will be affected. But when you're with the right people, pious people, even if something goes through your heart, you want to do something wrong, you can't do it next to them. It will pull you back. It will pull you back. And I remember Hoca Efendi used to advise, to youth, especially those who were studying, either in high schools or universities. He used to say, even if you need to go to a marketplace or things like that, go as a group, 3 people, minimum 3 people. Because you will, pull each other away from doing wrong things. Yeah. So this is reality, isn't it? That's human nature. So, like in the example as well, even if you're a good believer, you can make mistakes. It's in human nature. That is why you have to continuously auto-correct yourself. Control yourself, Accountants, every day they do balancing and things. They make sure that everything is correct, isn't it? Okay. So it would be good to do this. And Hazreti Ömer radiallahu anh used to do this. As you know, when he was a Khalifa, he hired someone. He used to pay him money to come and remind him, "Oh, Omar, you will die one day." So he paid money, when he was a leader to this person. He hired him. And they say every night he would stand in front of the mirror and he would say to himself, "Oh, Omar, what have you done for Allah today?" Auto-control, see? And after a while, the guy who he hired, he said, "I don't need you anymore." And the person said, "Aren't you going to die anymore?" And Omar said, "No, but I already got the warning on me. I got white hair. I'm started getting old and my back is starting to bend. So I already got the signs. I don't need you anymore." Those things are reminding me now. When I look at the mirror, I see the grays and they say, "Be careful, you're coming towards the end. So I don't need you anymore," he said. So this is very important. In fact, some of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, it's all noted down, reported that what they used to do, whatever they did throughout the day, in the evening they used to take it down. They used to do their own muhasabah, accounting, bookkeeping. What did I to do today? All the wrong things and all the right things. so they can be prepared for the next day as well. Because when the time comes, it will be too late. You cannot turn back anymore. It's too late. You cannot say, send me back, please, give me one more chance. You're not going to get it. It's finished. That is why one companion of the Prophet, ﷺ, he actually dug a grave behind his house in the garden. And at night, he used to go in it, lie down, and he used to say to himself, oh, such and such, you died now. Just an answer to the questions of the angels, you know. He used to hold himself accountable. And then while his eyes closed in the grave, he would say, you know, give me one more chance, Ya Rabbi. Give me one more chance. And he would open his eyes. There you go, you got your chance. Just be a better person tomorrow. It's not an easy thing to do. So this auto-control is very important for us, our nafs, so that we can rise on the levels of the nafs, because human nafs has different levels. Nafs is your side that always goes after the desires, in particular unlawful ones. That's your nafs. Your desires, your impulses. They're very hard to control. They are animalistic impulses. And the Quran says there are levels of it. And nafsul amware is the lowest level of the nafs. It will never obey anyone. You know, it won't want to worship. It won't want to do any, you know, duties of obedience. It will, you know, put its hand to anything, whether it's haram, halal. It will not think about it. It will just reach out for it. That's the nafsul amwara. One higher, the Quran says, nafsul lawwama, level of a nafs. It's one higher. And nafsul lawwama means self-accusing soul. It means it questions itself. When you reach that level, you start questioning yourself, you know. When you're doing something, you know, is this right thing to do or not? You know, maybe I shouldn't do this. It's haram. Allah is watching me. So it's questioning itself. And then you have another level, according to the Quran. It is nafsul mutma'inna, soul at rest. It means that it is content. Whatever God has given me, I'm content. I'm happy with it. I am happy with Allah. Inshallah, Allah is happy with me too. So it is that level that the Quran encourages people, believers, to reach. So one of the two soldiers is a devout Muslim who knows the obligations of his religion and performs them, and struggles with his own nafs and shaitan, so in order not to commit sins, while the other is a degenerate wrongdoer, Matthew, degenerate, who is so immersed in the struggle of livelihood that he casts aspirations on the true provider. It's so much after his rizq, wants to make money, wants to make everything, you know, wants to make sure that he's all right, that who forget that who is the true giver, who is the true sustainer, provider. Forgets about that. In reality, it's Allah who gives. You know, you can be the most intelligent person in the world. You know, you will maybe never get rich. You will never get wealthy. It is not your decision, really. It's nothing to do with intellect. It's nothing to do with power. You know, wealth is from Him. If He allows, He'll open the path to you. You'll do something simple and you become rich. There are people like that. Billionaires, but they cannot put two words together. When you listen to them, very low level thing, intellect, you can see. And then you see very great scientists who died in poverty. Poverty, great scientists. So it's nothing to do with that, you know. But in the world, there is this assumption, if somebody is rich doing big business, and oh, very intelligent. No, it's got nothing to do with intelligence. That is the reality. And we can see the examples of it from the animal kingdom, isn't it? We mentioned this a number of times. You know, fox, we always say fox is one of the very smart animals. Always hungry. lion, very, very powerful, strong. You can see its bones most of the time. Can't even find food most of the time. But you look at dumb animals, you know, like cows and things like that, always. So the weaker you are, the more impotent you are, the more help comes. It's the reality. God helps you more. When a baby is born, helpless, can't do anything, can't even walk, stand up. Babies, yeah, can't even keep their heads up like this all the time, yeah? But everything comes to their feet. The milk is poured into their mouths. Their under is cleaned, you know, when they do their things. They're looked after perfectly. The mother and father is like fireflies around. But as they grow up, more freedom of choice comes, more free will sits in there, more intellect, more strength comes, the less help comes. Allah then says, you can go and fetch for yourself now. You have enough intellect to do it. So these sort of things are what we call qismat. If it's qismat, Allah will give to you. But Allah will never, you know, abandon anyone. Everyone is, their sustenance is sent at different levels. But some people don't use it rightly, and then they blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God. You know, and sometimes people who are in comfort complain on behalf of others. That's another funny thing too. You know, because they are disbelievers. They say, you know, if Allah sends everyone's rizq, why are there people that are, say, for example, in Africa, you know, going hungry and things like that? He's asking this, but he's living in comfort. He's not in their shoes, you know. Questioning the compassion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The thing is, people sometimes, food comes to them, sustenance comes to them. Nobody really dies of hunger in reality. They die, you know, in places like Africa and various other places because of internal wars, you know, and two groups are fighting. Some people are pushed into deserts and things like that, and they suffer certain, you know, many different things. They die because of, you know, malnutrition and some diseases, and because of that. But usually everyone's rizq comes to them. But Allah may send people rizq in different amounts. You know, for example, He may send you one bag of rice that you need to use it carefully for the next year. You know, you gotta make sure you do iktisad, you know. Don't go into frugality. And you gotta look after yourself like that. But if you finish it in a week, what are you gonna do for the 51 weeks after that? So you cause it on yourself because you don't know how to use things. And that's one of the reasons that we fast during Ramadan too. It is a type of worship, but Allah also is teaching us something. It's teaching our body to go hungry as well, because you might need it one day. And at the same time, He's teaching us empathy. We realize how people, you know, the struggle to find food feel like. So He's teaching us their thing too. So all of these types of worship has a purpose and reason behind them. Yes. So He cast aspirations on the true believer, provider, abandons his religious obligations, the bad soldier, and commits any sins that come his way as he makes his living. As long as I make money, doesn't matter if it's halal or haram. Doesn't care. As for the training and instructions, it is foremost the prescribed prayers and worship. So in the example, he said one good soldier was always training, following the instructions. In reality, this means, you know, it is the prescribed prayers and other forms of worship. And the war example, in the analogy, is the struggle against one's own nafs. So we're not going to war and fighting. It's a struggle against our own. That's what the battle is. and one's own desires against the shaitans among jinn and men. Struggles against the Satans amongst jinn and humans too. Sometimes there are human shaitans. And sometimes these human shaitans will encourage you to do things that even the shaitan can't think of. There are people like that on earth. Shaitan will say, I didn't even think of this. How did you come up with this? So humans, shaitans can guide you to do bad things, really bad things as well. We see it in the world anyway, happening. So to deliver them from sin and bad morals and save the heart of and spirit from eternal perdition. So that's why the prayers are there for. So to protect you from the jinn shaitans and the human shaitans. Because when you're praying 5 times a day, you don't really have too much time to go and commit sins. You prayed the Asr prayer. Maghrib is not too far away, 2-3 hours away. You're not going to say, I'll just, go over to the pub in these couple of hours and come. No, nobody's going to say it, because the next prayer is coming. So it's protecting you. Salat is protecting you. In fact, there is one hadith where one day the companions of the Prophet came to him. They said, there's this person who is a Muslim as well. They said, oh, Messenger of Allah, he drinks alcohol still, And the Prophet said, he was a new Muslim, The Prophet said, does he pray 5 times a day? They said, yes, he does, And he said, leave him alone then, because that prayer will take him away from that alcohol, which eventually does. But usually in the Muslim societies, in particular, in the Wahhabi mentality, Salafi mentality, if you go ask them, I tried this so much too, when I'm teaching in the university, I asked the group, if a person is drinking alcohol and praying, which one would you approach first? To make him stop drinking? Sorry, no. A person is a new Muslim, but he still drinks alcohol, all right? I said, how would you approach this person? Would you say, you need to stop drinking first? Or would you say, come with me and we start praying together. I'll take you to Jummah or things like that. They always say, I'll get him to stop drinking. It's the wrong method. It's the wrong method. No, you don't do that, Everyone has a, fake idol. Some people's idol might be alcohol, others might be gambling or something like that. If you attack their idol, they will attack you back. They will resist. So you don't talk about their idols. What you do, you work on the positives. You work on the positive. You take him to Jummah, you encourage him to pray, do good things. And when that person starts doing good deeds, the other things are going to look bad to them. Otherwise, with just talking, you can never convince them. I remember years ago when I was in Turkey, my city is Izmir. There's a place in Izmir when you go from one, because it's like a gulf sort of thing. What they call it, Körfez. Bay. Yeah, it's like a bay city. When you go around the thing to the other side of Izmir, there's this place that we pass from, usually drive through. During summer, it's next to the sea. That region, that suburb, has a lot of factories that work with leather. And all the, things that come out of the factory goes into the sea, and that part there smells awful. Because all the leather smells, all the dirt, filth going into the sea. And when we used to pass there, we used to close our noses, to turn the things off, roll the windows up. Then somebody said to me a very interesting thing, one of our Hodges. He said, you know that there are people living in this area. It's a suburb. There's people, houses there, He said, if you go to those people and say, how can you stand this? It's this awful smell. Even when we're passing through, we go like this, you know. They will say, what smell? Because they're used to it. They've been living there all their lives. So instead of saying this is bad smell, he said, what you do is you take that person to a rose garden. And when they enter the rose garden, they're going to say, what a beautiful smell. That place smells. They're going to realize it themselves. So this is what it is. You know, if they're doing something wrong, you don't say you're doing something wrong. First, you teach them what is good, what is right. They will understand that the other one is wrong themselves. And this is very important for methodology, you know.
Our Prophet's methodology.
Yes. And the first of the two duties is to give life and sustain it, while the other is to worship and beseech the giver and sustainer of life. It is to trust him and rely on him. So first of the two duties is to give life and sustain it. That is the duty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not our duty to give life and sustain it. But the other is our duty as creation. It is the worship and beseech the giver of life and the sustainer of life. It is our duty because he gives life, he sustains life. It is to trust Allah and rely on him. There was this man once, where someone explains it too. He had all his valuables. He packaged them up. It was a big bundle like this. And he got on a ship. And he was taking his thing to somewhere else. When he was on the ship, he had all that load, big thing, you know, his gold or whatever he had, on his shoulder. He's on the deck of the ship, and he's standing like this, carrying it still on his shoulder, the load. So another man said, what are you doing? You know, you shouldn't be doing this. He said, put it down and sit on it. Let it take you. Don't carry it on your shoulder. He said, if you do this, if you're not trusting, you know, because of distrust, captain will be angry with you too for not trusting him. You know, so this was an analogy that he uses too. So we are on a ship. This world is a ship. Captain is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. All these burdens of life, don't try to carry them on your shoulder. Because whatever is going to happen anyway. You cannot change it. Put it down, sit on it, relax. You'll be happy and content. It's a reality, you'll see. This is psychological too. It's very important. So, for sure, it is enough to compare fish with foxes, as I mentioned before, newborn animals with the wild beasts, trees with animals, in order to understand that licit food is obtained not through power and will, through intellect, power and will, but through impotence and helplessness. So food is not obtained from toughness and things like that. We see it in nature, as he mentions here too, the example that I give. Trees just stand there, you know, they can't even move. The food comes to them because they're so weak, impotent. They're just standing there. The more, you know, strength you have, the less food comes. You need to chase after it. That is to say, someone who gives up performing the prayers because of the struggles of this life resembles the soldier who abandons his training and the trench and went and begged in the market. He resembles the soldier. He says, oh, I can't make my living. What am I doing in the army? I'll go try to, you know, make money from somewhere else. He becomes a traitor, and he loses and starts begging from others as well. That's life, isn't it? Yeah. So, livelihood comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't beg it from other people. Rizq is from him. But if one seeks their rations from the kitchens of the all generous provider's mercy after performing the prayer, and to go oneself as not to be a burden on others is fine and manly. That's a true man. You do your prayers, yes, you can go and seek your rizq as well. And Allah will give it to you. Allah will provide it to you. I remember some years ago, again in Turkey, this hoja that I had, Bekir Abi, we jumped on a taxi once. This guy, this taxi driver, it was in Burdur, and he's talking to the taxi driver, and he said to him, you look like a religious man, And the taxi, of course, I believe Abi, he said, I have, my faith is strong, He goes, are you able to do your prayers, 5 daily prayers? He goes, it's very hard when you drive in taxi, he goes. You got customers and things like that. And Bekir Abi said to him, if you had a stomach ache right now and you needed to immediately go to toilet, he said, what would you do? We are customers in the car. He said, I'll pull over. I got no other choice. He said, is prayers less important than toilet? He said, going to toilet. He was shocked. Do you think it's less important? He said. He said, it's easy for you just between customers. Find just 5 minutes. Just do the farz, in the corner somewhere and continue your job. Allah will send you the rizq. Allah will send you the rizq. Imagine you're a person who works 8 hours a day. Most of us here are like that. Let us say we earn good, $100 an hour, right? Let's give an example like that. That is $800 a day, all right? And we are going to work one day. Somebody says to us, take this shovel, dig here, it'll take you half an hour, just dig it. There is a treasure underneath it. It's worth $10 million. Would you say to that man, no, I will lose $50 if I spend half an hour here? Would you say that? Nobody would. Everyone grab the shovel, they will dig, So, can't you spare half an hour a day for the prayers? Because the treasure they give to you is eternal, unending treasure. See the logic here? And Allah doesn't want much from us. As I said before, He doesn't want much. 5 daily prayers is like 50 minutes, I can tell you. Just the farz, it will take you half an hour, the entire day. Why is it so difficult to some people's nafs? Inshallah, I'm getting there. I'm going to stop now. Furthermore, man's nature and spiritual faculties show that he is created for worship. For in respect of the power and actions necessary for the life of this world, he cannot compete with the most inferior sparrow, a bird. So this shows that we are created for worship, human beings, because in regards to, getting your sustenance and looking after yourself, human beings cannot even be compared to a tiny bird. Because for the tiny bird is everything easy. In one day it will make its house. Just collect few things on the tree. It'll go and find its rizq very easily, sustenance. Are humans like this? A little bird, an animal, does not think about the past, does not think about the future, doesn't have the concerns that we have as human beings. The mind is not constantly bothering them. Isn't it? Think about it. The bird doesn't say, oh, last year my cousin died, my brother died and cries. No, doesn't even know what happened. So they get full pleasure out of this life. Full pleasure, animals. But human life are not like that. Even when you're eating the most beautiful food, 1,000 things goes through your mind. Isn't it? Isn't that reality? Tomorrow I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta finish this, I gotta get to that new house. I gotta open this, I gotta finish the carpenter, I gotta make the pizza right, or whatever, you know. Your mind is in. When I do this, I want to open my business, I get a new car, so many things. Everything is bothering you. It's always humans. On top of that, I gotta pay the rent, I gotta pay the electricity, telephone, gas, keeps on going. If you got family, I gotta look after the kid, I gotta look after that, I gotta... Endless worries. So we cannot compare ourselves to a simple bird. The bird has much more pleasure out of life than us, which means we were created for something else, not just to enjoy ourselves here. Something else. And what is that? To earn the eternal paradise. To obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship. And that is the reason for our creation. Yes, Jazakallah khair. I'll stop there because we got to pray, as Zach said. Thank you everyone online as well for your participation. As usual, we continued with the Risale-I Nur. We got, I think, 8th word and the 9th word to do. So 2 more weeks to finish the words, the small words anyway. Take care everyone.